Hi there, my teists. So the second movement of Quan is something that has a couple different names. The one that I mainly know it as is double cutting hands. That's because the motion is meant to be a kind of slicing or cutting motion with the fronts and backs of hands. I've also heard it called holding the pearl or holding the wheel, since the next move after it is the Dharma wheel. And it's essentially from your Chi Shi. You just bring one hand across the bottom of the waist and then the other hand across the shoulder line, and they meet in the center along the central channel, along the central line. There are more advanced variations where from there you cup under, like a lower Zhuanzhang, a pole standing posture, and then cut. And then there are longer versions where you cut and then you bring the hands in line and then cross over, kind of rolling the wheel or rolling the ball with that position before moving on. That is the bulk of the technique. It looks very simple. You just do the Chi Shi and then cut across and then hold and then move on to the next movement. If you're going to be very involved about it, you Chi Shi, hold the ball, and then cut across, hold, slowly transition, and then move into the Dharma wheel. The offensive and defensive capacity of this are fairly obvious. The hands are cutting, so you're pulling or cutting across with the front or back of the hand. This was expressed to me that with the ridge hand, you can push it under the nose and put someone in a fair amount of pain without hurting them. So if someone's getting into a fight with someone else, you come up behind them, bring the hand under the nose and pull them back, perhaps while pushing on the small of the back, and you can separate a fight non-violently or less violently without doing a whole lot of permanent damage. Defensively, yes, you can push or move things across. Offensively, you have the thrusting out, so that could be a pass and then a thrust into the body, very similar to Shotokan. You can also use the elbow, so that the elbow comes out and the elbow pushes back to deflect and hit at closer range. And of course, you can grab and pull, or pull something across, like you're in an armbar, you grab, pull across, and then use your shoulder or bicep as a leverage point for an armbar. Those are the grappling applications, along with the nose trick. And the throwing techniques, or shuai jiao techniques, I wouldn't say this is a throw. I would not say that this is a technique that this is meant to necessarily throw something. Although, in terms of both Qina and Shuai Jiao, the rolling of the hands, I once saw it applied as a neck crank. And a Shaolin neck crank sounds like a bit of a contradiction in terms, but it was essentially meant to, no, you crank the person, they know what's going on, they throw themselves. I think that's a bit of an Aikido mindset, but you could work it that way. As a fighting posture, this covers the ribs, so this cuts off the gate, and then you have this hand free to move. It leads into the Dharma wheel pretty effectively, actually. As a Qigong position, this really shines because this is, of course, like holding the ball in Tai Chi, rolling the ball like what you see in Dragon. And this is also meant to give you an idea of where the governor channel, the central energetic vessel of the body, is. As a stretch, you have that good inverse of the shoulder stretch. You're stretching in, so you get that good stretch in the back. That should be everything. And in terms of weapons, the cutting action is the biggest action of that. If you have a bladed weapon and you just hit with it, you can actually hit the person and not cut them. You need to draw. And that's also something to keep in mind with a non-bladed weapon, that if you have a non-bladed weapon and you don't necessarily want to hit them with percussive force, you can draw along them and get leverage. It's I don't want to say a stretch, but it is something where like you have to understand that this is something that works better with a bladed weapon and less well with a percussion weapon like a staff or mace. So if you're trying to cut someone with the mace, that might be that you are trying to do the less lethal option rather than just clubbing them. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Again, always keep in mind that, you know, the Shaolin arts are originally Buddhist. They were meant to be defensive, not offensive. And that the weapons were trained so that you knew how to deal with weapons. So, someone's coming in with a broadsword, they're not coming in just to hit you, they're going to cut. That cutting motion or cutting aspect is something that they want to keep in their minds. So it's one of those, here's those fundamentals right up front. Second move, or first real move after the Qi Shi, they're teaching you about cutting. They're teaching you about those Qigong applications. They're teaching you about ranges of this is a short range movement, this is a longer range movement. You know, you're teaching all those base fundamentals in the first move. So that's one of the things to keep in mind. I am going to try and get more videos up in the near future. My schedule's been hectic. I've had a couple 13-day work weeks. So, yeah, it's been busy, but I'm going to try and get more videos in this year. So then, keep your teacups empty.